Right, so we're going to blast through like we did yesterday with the goal setting. It's really, really simple stuff, but stuff we need to recap on and go over. So there's a couple of things that I want you to note down, do as an exercise and work on, and I'll share that with you. So I'll just share my screen. It's a really basic setup. So it's how we did the goal setting session yesterday. Nutrition workshop, some notes for me to take you through, some notes for you to write down, but mostly some questions to ask yourself and then use going forward. Because what I want you to do is to have some basic things that you can work on tomorrow, the day after that, and all the way through up until this time next year. Nothing major, no big scientific announcements that have just come out or anything like that. It's all stuff we already know, but it's stuff that we're probably overlooking and leaving out. So the message is clear: keeping things simple and looking after your health more in 2023. And also the reason why our plans to be great fail at the first thought of a takeaway. So a lot of this is based on our mindset, our thoughts, and our actions. So what will happen is we'll have a thought that we want to do something, we'll have an action which follows it, and then it doesn't really leave us anywhere or take us anywhere further than that. So what I want to try and do in this session is to have some sort of simplicity around it, but also longevity as well, which you can stick with. So our thoughts around foods, like we've just had a little chat before it started about decreasing meat intake, for example, but then a sacrifice with that is going into vegetarian, vegan products, which are highly processed, and then having to deal with the side of the processed foods. Our actions, more so on the things like going out and food shopping, making plans for the week, how in depth the plans are and whether they need to be in depth. And then getting rid of the question mark on this now and asking you the question, where does this leave you with foods, as in your mindset around it, your thoughts, how you feel around foods, what sort of impact they've had on you so far, what impacts they have on the people around you, and the message that you pass on as well. So there's, although I'm going to go into simplicity, I want to touch on this. There's some things and some times when we have to eat for health reasons, certain conditions, and to reverse health issues as well. So there might be times, we've done it in groups before, where we put a list of foods out where people to avoid, and people always reply saying, I've spent so many years thinking these were healthy foods and good foods for me. That's not the case. Sometimes to reverse conditions or improve people's health, it just needs to be a set, strict routine that cuts things out and avoids things. So it's not always the case where it's simple and we can get around just logging a couple of calories and doing this and that. Sometimes if people have got health issues, conditions that we need to work on, then we have to be really, really strict and reduce certain foods. And yes, even some healthy foods, certain fruit and veg, for example, have to be removed when we're working towards a goal around this. So that's just what I want to make you aware. I'm not saying things are bad and good, just sometimes for certain things, we need to eat differently. Right, a big one. We've been running the sugar challenge for the week and it's not gone great. Sugars, caffeine, processed foods, saturated fats, not eating enough alcohol, they're probably the biggest things that we see for people's foods and issues that people are having. That's why we started the sugar challenge on trying to reduce it, and more so the actual sugar content of adding sugar to your food. So brews, cups of teas, coffees, cereals, porridges, things like that, desserts where we're actually adding more sugar in. This is like the basic 101 of foods and getting some success around foods. So these are stresses on our body. Sugars, caffeine, processed foods, saturated fats, not eating enough, and alcohol. Like I said here, I'm not going to tell you to reduce and cut out every single one of them. These are all stresses, and we've all got enough stress in our lives as it is without impacting it more and dumping a load more internally on our digestive system. So the first question to ask yourself really is, out of these things that I've listed here, which one do you know? And you'll know the answer for this, I won't. Which one needs to get reduced, cut down on, and worked on first? I don't want you to try and remove all of them at once, because it's not going to go well. It's not going to last for long. So have a little think about these food groups here and which one needs to get worked on first. If you're not sure, then rate your stress levels first of all. So how high do you think your stresses are? And if you're at a 5, 1 to 5 being high, then have a look what the first thing is that your go-to is when you're stressed. And then whatever the answer to that is, that's the one that needs to get worked on first.
Question. Can I ask a question, Jack?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, they're not eating enough. I think I probably fall into that sometimes. And what impact does that have?
So in a nutshell, if we don't eat enough, imagine you're in the car now, which you are, and Holly hasn't put enough fuel in the car. Then what's going to happen? You don't get home.
Run out.
You don't get home.
Which is probably why I have fatigue quite a lot.
Yeah. So I'd rather people start increasing the amount they're eating and keep all of this in first of all, and then start working backwards on that if that's the case. The basic thing is, if you don't eat enough, then your body's got to survive on what it's got. And then when it starts running low and we're really stressed, and the body's stressing on trying to get all these vital nutrients around the body to support it to be able to sleep, hair growth, nails, get through workouts, get through work, and just keep moving, then it's going to take its toll on it, and it'll come to a crash in some way. And then that's where it comes to the point of people start getting little acute illnesses, maybe like deficiencies in B12, iron levels are low, or they're getting headaches, migraines, digestion issues. And a lot of it will come from not eating enough. Yeah, it can come from not eating the right things as well, but that's why it's all on the list.
Okay.
And the thing that happens if we're not eating enough, over a period of time, we'll get to a point where we need to eat enough, and then that's where probably all these other ones come in. It's just grab and go. So everything we put on our body, it has a reaction in some form, whether they're good or not so good. But yeah, it's a huge one, not eating enough, because we can't expect to do everything we're normally doing when we're running on low, and then not be surprised when things start coming up that we're getting injured, headaches, we feel dehydrated, and we've got some health issues going on. It's probably the first place to start. And then touching on this little table, so we've got our proteins, we've got our fats, and we've got our carbs. So keep things really simple. This top line here is your breakfast, this is your lunch, and this is your tea. So the ones are when you've got and had protein, and then a 0 is when you don't. So imagine if we look at our breakfast we've had this morning, yeah, it's dense in carbs, we've had no fats or no proteins. When we get to lunch, if that happens the same, scoring it, and forget about, like I said, calories and stuff like that, and looking at going fasting or whatever. This is the basics that we're going over here. So if you want to go back to mindset around foods, be more aware of what's on your plate in front of you, or even before you cook it, and just have a look. Have I got this? Does it contain this? Have I got this? If the answer is yes, we get 3 1s, we get ticks across the board. And then really, really simply, that's your day done. We've had a good amount of protein, a good amount of fats, and a good amount of carbs. And what we've got coming out this week for you all with this is a list of everything. Protein, fats, and carbs. We've got one already, but it's quite in depth because it goes into calories, grams, and ounces. This one will just be dead basic, and it'll be things like normal food, if you like. So you'll get this later on in the week, and then you can just pick through that list and pick something out. Go into this list, pick something out of that list, and then you've got a meal there. Is that making sense? Any questions on that? Again, these are really, really basic things, but I think it's time we went back to the basics and got all these covered and dialed in. Right, so the next little exercise to do, we're going to do this now. If you haven't got access to pen and paper or a notepad, whatever, just do it in your head, because you can do list in 60 seconds. And I'm going to pop a timer on so we can stay on track with this and on time. You've got 60 seconds to list everything that you know is good to do around foods. Off we go. So time is set. So this is things like, I know it's good to eat loads of vegetables. I know it's good to mix up the amount of foods I eat. I know it's good to drink enough water. I know it's good to eat the right amount of foods. I know I shouldn't eat too much of this. All the good things that you know. We've only got a minute. You're just going to fire things down. Everything you know is good to do. Don't have to necessarily be doing this at the minute. Just things that you know, that's in your brain, that you've learned, you've been taught. We've got another 30 seconds. And the reason why we got a timer on it, like the goal setting yesterday, you'll just blast them out. Eating greens is good for me. Making sure I'm aware of how much I'm eating, not eating too late at night. Make sure I'm having breakfast, having 3 meals a day. Making sure I'm eating enough protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Make sure I've got a good balance on my plate. My portion sizes aren't too big. Things like that. Right, that's the minute up. Just leave it where it is. And then go over the list. We're going to set another timer for 60 seconds. And start looking at which one of those you can do better on, or start making a list on things that you can get better on. And don't start thinking like, oh God, I'm pulling loads out. The whole point of the 60 seconds is just to get some without even thinking, with the lizard brain yesterday, bang, 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 bang. And then we can do something with that. So 60 seconds. What can you do better? Which one of those can you start doing and working on? So you could just read through your list and just put a tick next to the ones you know you could get better at. Tick as many as you like, write down as much as you want. We've got another 30 seconds to go yet. So what can you improve on? What can you get better at? And don't judge this, just go with it and write things down. Yeah, you got 15 seconds to go. Just keep going, keep the pen moving. Last little bit. Tick the ones that you've already wrote, write down some more. Okay, good. Right. So the next little bit I'm going to go through is almost like the house, the pyramid. We posted this before in different levels in our groups. So we've got things that we know are good to do. We've got things that we can improve on. We've got a list there. Now, the important thing to do is to start ranking them in order, and not so much which one's probably the biggest and best thing. Which one is the absolute simple that you can get done? What's the most basic thing on there that you know you can get done no matter what? And then this goes in the foundation of building your nutrition house. So have a look over your list and just do this as I'm talking. You're not going to share this with anyone, so you don't need to go big and fancy and say, I'm going to start prepping meals every night for 3 hours. Something really, really basic. And again, you're going to have loads of them ticked off and written down. And it doesn't matter about that. You just need to pull out and prioritize one. And then once you've got that, I want you to move up to the next level. So the bottom floor, and then pick number 2. Again, this is for you. So just do this for you. Which one can you add in next? So the first one should be really, really, really basic, easily done. Second one should be the same. So we should have 2 basic things. And to be honest, when you read them back, they shouldn't really excite you too much, and it's not going to be groundbreaking. You think like, oh my God, that's amazing. I should be eating vegetables. Just pick out the 2 basics, and then we're going to keep those in. And then the third one is going to be a little bit of a push and a little bit different. So I want you to pick a third one out of your list and add that almost as in like the second floor on the roof of the house. You've got 3 things then. First 2 are dead simple. You can do no matter what. And the third one should be maybe a little bit of a challenge for you, a little bit of a stretch so you can work on. So then we've got 3 things written down. 2 that will get done no matter what. 3 should be able to get done, a bit more of a push. And even if you're doing this exercise later on, just start thinking about it. And then this next bit is the last bit of the session. I said it's no frills. It's not really anything groundbreaking, not unearthing any big major scientific research here. What can you honestly keep up? And you need to ask that about the 3 things that you've written down or thought of. If you know you can't keep them up, or if you know they're going to be affected by a busy day in work, you need to get those off the list and replace them straight away. So let's say, for example, you've put, I'm going to prep my foods every morning for an hour or something like that. If you know work's going to be busy tomorrow and you've got meetings early on and that can't get done, get it off the list and pick something dead simple. As soon as we start overcomplicating it, then this is where it becomes on, off, and that's not what we want. Okay, something we touched on with the goal setting yesterday. Imagine doing something or doing a couple of things every day for 365 days of the year. So if we were able to keep up those 3 things that you've got written down and nothing else for 365 days of consistent movement, how would your results look at the end of the year? And this is where it becomes important that the things you've written down are basic and aren't dead exciting. They're just things you get done and start building into habits. If you can do those every day without fail, then I'm pretty sure you'd get some good results over the next 12 months. This last bit I've put here against every other 4 weeks. So what will tend to happen, it's anything from like 21 to 28 days on average that people will stick with something. If we do those 3 things well for like 2 weeks, then the final week we start doing bits of it, then the likelihood is we don't do anything for the next 21 to 28 days. And then we come back and pick up something else and have a break. So imagine just doing the basics for 365 against every 21 to 28 days of the year. And that's really the amount I want to go into on the nutrition stuff, is having you do the basics before we move on. Of course, like I said before, if people come and they've got issues, health conditions, things they need to work on, it's different, it's more in-depth. Let's scale things back and let's get things really basic ticked off each day. Any questions around anything? And by the way, you've all created a to-do list for the next week, 2 weeks, 6 months, 12 months. So what you've written down or you've been thinking of is what you need to go away and start doing from tomorrow onwards.
That's really good, Jack. Thank you.
Just keep it simple. There's a poll we did ages ago and put out who gets the biggest results. People that do 6 months of like insane dieting against people who do 12 months of just doing 2 to 3 things basic. And it's a real even split, 50-50 on people saying one, 50% people saying the other. When in reality, it's the people that are just cruising through the year doing the daily basics that are getting huge success.
Very helpful.
Yeah, very good.
And I haven't given you anything to do. You've all just written it down. So it's you've chose it because you know you need to do it and it's going to get you results. So you've all got it. So tomorrow morning, don't be surprised if we check in with you and ask for them and then ask if you're doing them. So you've written these down. You've said that they're easy and you can do them every day for the next year. So let's start building some momentum, moving the needle and doing it daily. Anything
That's
for me?
really good, Jack. Thanks very much.
No worries. I'll pop us in the groups of recording. If you get any questions or want to go into any further into this, then we can do. But let's keep things really basic and get those ticked off.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye. Bye bye.